The restaurant was beginning to quiet down when Maya noticed something strange. A purse, black leather, expensive, and completely forgotten on a chair. She looked toward the entrance. Just minutes earlier, a tall man in a black suit had walked out of the restaurant beside an older woman. The staff had been whispering about him the entire night. Security guards, black SUVs outside. No one knew his name, but everyone knew he was dangerous. The older woman had been kind, though. She had even smiled warmly at Maya before leaving. Now her purse sat there, alone, forgotten. Maya hesitated, because something about the man made her feel like this wasn't something you simply touched. But she stepped closer anyway. The restaurant lights reflected off the gold clasp. Slowly, she picked it up. And in that moment, Maya had no idea she was holding something that could make one of the most powerful men in the city lose billions overnight. And returning it would cost her everything she had, her job, her home, her future. But what Maya didn't know yet was that the man who lost that purse would soon be searching for the one person who saved his empire. And when he finally found her, her life would change forever. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below, because what happens next? No one in that restaurant could have predicted. The city was already glowing under the golden lights of evening when a black luxury sedan rolled slowly through the busy downtown streets. Inside the car sat the Mafia boss, a man whose name was never spoken casually in the city. Across business circles, political offices, and the darker corners of the underground world, people knew exactly who he was. But very few people dared to speak about him openly. At just under 40 years old, the Mafia boss had built a powerful empire that stretched across finance, shipping, and private investments. His influence moved quietly through the city like an invisible force. Deals happened because he allowed them. Businesses rose because he supported them. And sometimes, businesses disappeared when they stood in his way. But despite the dangerous reputation that surrounded him, there was one person in the world who still saw him simply as a son. Since sitting beside him in the passenger seat was the Mafia boss's mum. She was a graceful woman in her late 60s, with calm eyes and a gentle voice that carried the wisdom of someone who had seen many seasons of life. She looked out the window at the glowing city lights as the car moved through the evening traffic. "You work too much," she said softly. The Mafia boss smirked slightly, his eyes still focused on the road. "Yeah, you've been saying that since I was 20. And I was right then too," she replied with a small smile. The corner of his mouth lifted. There were very few people in the world who could speak to him that way without fear. His mother was one of them. The car slowly pulled to a stop in front of one of the most elegant restaurants in the city. The golden sign outside read, La Rivière, a place known for its luxurious atmosphere, quiet piano music, and a guest list filled with wealthy executives, celebrities, and powerful figures. A valet quickly rushed forward as the Mafia boss stepped out of the car. He adjusted the sleeve of his perfectly tailored black suit. As he moved, the faint outline of a tattoo along the side of his neck became visible above his collar, a silent reminder that the path to his power had not always been clean. He walked around the car and opened the door for his mother. The Mafia boss's mum stepped out with quiet elegance. "You didn't have to bring me somewhere this fancy," she said with a gentle laugh. The Mafia boss offered his arm. "For you, I'd close the entire city if I had to." She smiled and placed her hand on his arm as they walked toward the restaurant entrance. Two security guards immediately opened the doors. Inside, the restaurant glowed under warm golden lighting. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above beautifully set tables, while soft piano music drifted through the air. Couples and business partners sat quietly enjoying their meals. A host quickly approached them. "Good evening, your table is ready." The Mafia boss gave a small nod. They were guided toward a comfortable table near the center of the restaurant. Not too hidden, but not too exposed either. The Mafia boss pulled out the chair for his mother before sitting down across from her. The Mafia boss's mum looked around the restaurant with admiration. "It's beautiful." A waiter quickly arrived with menus. But before he could speak, another voice appeared beside the table. "Good evening." It was a young waitress holding a serving tray. Her name tag read, Maya. She looked to be in her late 20s, wearing a black apron over a white shirt. Her curly hair was neatly tied back, and despite the busy evening shift, she carried herself with calm professionalism. "Welcome to La Riviere," Maya said politely. "Can I start you with something to drink?" The Mafia boss's mum smiled warmly at her. "Yes, dear. I'll have the house white wine." The Mafia boss looked up briefly. "Sparkling water." "Of course," Maya replied. She quickly wrote the order down. "I'll bring that right away." As she walked away, the Mafia boss's mum leaned slightly toward her son. "She seems like a kind young woman." The Mafia boss shrugged casually. She's doing her job." His mother gave him a knowing look. "You should try noticing people more." But the Mafia boss had already glanced down at his phone, briefly checking a message from one of his executives. Even in moments of peace, his empire never truly rested. A few minutes later, Maya returned with their drinks. She placed them carefully on the table. "Here you go." "Thank you," the Mafia boss's mum said warmly. Maya nodded politely. Let me know when you're ready to order." As she walked away again, the Mafia boss's mum quietly watched her. "You see?" "What?" the Mafia boss replied. "That young woman." "What about her?" She took a sip of her wine. "She looks like someone who works very hard." The Mafia boss sighed lightly. "Mother, this city is full of people who work hard." "Yes," she said softly, "but not everyone gets noticed." Dinner continued peacefully. They ordered their meals. They shared stories. And the Mafia boss's mum spoke about a new charity project she wanted to support. The Mafia boss listened quietly, occasionally smiling as she described her plans to help struggling families. For once, he looked relaxed. Maya checked on them throughout the evening, always polite and attentive. Eventually, the dinner came to an end. The Mafia boss paid the bill without even looking at the total. The Mafia boss's mum stood up and adjusted her blazer. "That was wonderful." Maya returned as they prepared to leave. "Thank you for dining with us tonight." The Mafia boss's mum smiled kindly. "The service was excellent." "Thank you," Maya said gratefully. The Mafia boss simply nodded. Then they turned and began walking toward the restaurant exit. Neither of them noticed what had been left behind. Resting quietly on the chair beside their table was the Mafia boss's mum's black leather purse, or inside that purse was something worth billions of dollars to the Mafia boss's empire. And across the room, Maya had just turned around and seen it. Her eyes widened slightly, because something told her this was no ordinary purse. For several seconds, Maya simply stood there, frozen. Her eyes fixed on the black leather purse sitting quietly on the chair beside the table. The restaurant continued moving around her, plates clinking, quiet conversations drifting through the air, the soft piano music playing from the corner of the room. But for Maya, everything suddenly felt very still. She slowly walked closer to the table. Her heart began beating a little faster. There was no doubt about it. The purse belonged to the Mafia boss's mum. She had seen the elegant woman place it beside her earlier in the evening. But now, the table was empty. The chairs were pushed slightly back. The wine glasses were half empty, and the purse remained exactly where it had been left. Maya glanced toward the restaurant entrance. Through the glass doors, she could see the faint outline of the Mafia boss and his mum walking toward a black car outside. They were already leaving. Her first instinct was simple: call out to them. But by the time she reached the entrance, they were already gone. The black sedan disappeared down the street. Maya stood there quietly for a moment. Then she looked back toward the purse. Something about it made her uneasy. It wasn't just a forgotten item. It felt important. She walked back to the table and gently picked it up. The leather felt expensive, heavy, much heavier than a normal purse. Maya frowned slightly. What did she leave in here? Bricks? She murmured under her breath. She quickly looked around the restaurant. No one seemed to be paying attention. The other waiters were busy serving tables. The manager was speaking with a couple near the bar. Still, Maya hesitated. She knew it wasn't right to open someone else's purse. But at the same time, if it contained identification, she could use it to contact the owner. Slowly, she opened the clasp. Inside, she expected to find something simple, maybe a phone, a wallet, keys. Instead, she found something far more unusual. A small black flash drive sat carefully inside a hidden inner compartment. Beside it were several documents and a thin envelope sealed with a company logo Maya didn't recognize. Her brow furrowed. She gently picked up the flash drive. It looked completely ordinary, but something about the way it had been carefully hidden made her suspicious. She flipped the small metal cap open. On the side of the device were tiny engraved letters. She leaned closer to read them. Then her eyes widened. Because even someone who didn't work in business would recognize the name engraved on that drive. It was the name of the Mafia boss's company. Maya suddenly remembered something. Earlier in the evening, she had overheard two men at another table whispering about the Mafia boss. They spoke quietly, but their voices carried enough for her to hear. They had mentioned a massive business deal worth billions that was supposed to be finalized soon. A deal that could either make the Mafia boss even more powerful or cost him everything. Maya slowly placed the flash drive back into the purse. Her heart began racing. Okay, this is definitely not something small, she whispered to herself. She quickly closed the purse again. Now she understood something important. That purse didn't just belong to a wealthy woman. It belonged to someone connected to one of the most powerful men in the city. And whatever was inside it was clearly extremely valuable. Maya looked toward the restaurant doors again. The Mafia boss and his mum were long gone. For a moment, a dangerous thought crossed her mind. No one would know if she simply walked away. No one would even know she had found the purse. But the thought vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. Maya shook her head firmly. No, she whispered. That's not who I am. She picked up the purse and walked quickly toward the manager's desk. Her manager, Mr. Carter, looked up from a stack of receipts. What's that? He asked. A guest left this behind, Maya said. Mr. Carter glanced at the purse. Well, leave it in the lost and found. Maya hesitated. I think it belongs to the man who just left, the one in the black suit. Mr. Carter raised an eyebrow. Or, you mean the rich guy? Yes. Mr. Carter shrugged dismissively. If it's important, he'll come back for it. But what if he doesn't realize it's missing yet? Maya insisted. Mr. Carter leaned back in his chair. Maya, we're busy tonight. Just put it in the office. But Maya looked down at the purse again. Something inside her refused to ignore the situation. I think I should return it, she said. Mr. Carter frowned immediately. You think you should what? Return it to them. Mr. Carter stared at her like she had just said something ridiculous. You're working a shift. I know. So how exactly do you plan to do that? I could leave for a bit. Maybe I can find them before they get too far. Mr. Carter shook his head. No. Maya blinked. No? You leave your shift tonight and don't come back. You're done here. The words hung in the air. Maya swallowed. This job wasn't perfect, but it paid her rent. And the small apartment she lived in was part of the employment agreement with the restaurant. Losing the job meant losing the apartment too. But she looked down at the purse again, then toward the restaurant doors. Her decision formed quietly in her mind. She placed the purse under her arm. I'm sorry, she said softly. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. Maya, Mr. Carter shouted behind her. If you walk out that door, you're fired. Maya paused for just a moment. Then she pushed the door open and stepped into the night. Because deep down, she knew something inside that purse could change someone's life forever, and she wasn't about to let it disappear. The purse that changed everything. Maya had been walking for nearly an hour. The city lights flickered across the wet pavement as cars rushed past her, their headlights reflecting on the slick road like streaks of white fire. Her feet ached, and the thin restaurant shoes she wore were never meant for long walks like this. But she kept moving. Clutched tightly against her chest was the black purse. Every few minutes, she glanced down at it again, and as if to reassure herself that it was still there, that everything she had sacrificed tonight hadn't been for nothing. Behind her, the restaurant where she worked was already fading into the distance. Her job was gone. Her apartment would soon be gone too. But strangely, Maya didn't regret her decision, because deep down, she knew something important was inside this purse. Something that had made the mafia boss's mother look extremely careful whenever she touched it earlier that night. And Maya had seen many wealthy people in that restaurant before, but none like them. The mafia boss and his mother carried themselves differently. Quiet power, seriousness, the kind of presence that made everyone in the room pay attention without them saying a single word. And if they had left something behind, it had to matter. Finally, Maya reached a quiet bus stop and sat down on the bench. Her legs trembled from exhaustion. She looked around the empty street, and then slowly opened the purse. Inside were the usual things someone might carry: a small notebook, a phone, a few personal items. But then, she saw it. A small black flash drive. Maya frowned. Carefully, she picked it up between her fingers. It looked ordinary, but something about it felt important. And suddenly she remembered. Earlier in the restaurant, when the mafia boss had briefly spoken to his mother about a business deal, she had overheard a few words while serving them. Tomorrow decides everything. And now Maya realized something terrifying. What if this flash drive had something to do with that? Her heart began to pound. She quickly zipped the purse shut again. Whatever was inside this flash drive, it was clearly important, and she had to return it as soon as possible. But there was one problem. She had absolutely no idea where to find them. So, across the city, inside a tall glass office building overlooking the skyline. The mafia boss stood silently behind his desk. His mother sat in a chair across from him, her expression tense. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the city outside the window. For the first time that evening, the mafia boss looked worried. Not angry, not calm. Worried. And that was something very few people had ever seen. His mother spoke first. My purse. I must have left it at the restaurant." The mafia boss exhaled slowly and ran a hand through his hair. "You're sure?" She nodded. "I remember placing it on the chair beside me." For several seconds, the mafia boss didn't say anything. Then he leaned forward on the desk. "Inside that purse is the flash drive." His mother's face grew serious. "Yes." The room went silent again. That flash drive contained information tied to a deal worth billions of dollars. Your years of negotiations, private contracts, business agreements that had taken months to finalize. Without it, everything could collapse. The mafia boss turned to the large window overlooking the city lights. For the first time that night, his jaw tightened. "Call the restaurant," he said quietly. Minutes later, one of his assistants returned with the answer. "They say they haven't found any purse." The mafia boss closed his eyes briefly. That meant only two possibilities. Either someone had taken it, or it had been thrown away by mistake. And either outcome would be disastrous. Meanwhile, Maya stood outside a tall office building she had only seen in magazines. She had spent nearly 2 hours asking questions, searching online and following clues until she finally discovered where the mafia boss's company headquarters was located. Now she stood there nervously. The building looked enormous. Glass walls, security guards, luxury cars parked outside. Maya suddenly felt very small, but she took a deep breath. Then she walked toward the entrance. 2 security guards immediately stepped forward. "Can we help you?" Maya swallowed nervously. "Yes, I need to see the owner of the company." The guards exchanged looks. "That's not possible." Maya held up the purse. "I think he's looking for this." The guards froze. One of them immediately spoke into his radio. Within minutes, Maya was escorted inside the building. See, her heart pounded louder with every step. Finally, the elevator doors opened. She was led into a large office, and there he was. The mafia boss stood near the window. His mother sat nearby. Both of them turned as Maya entered. The moment the mother saw the purse, she gasped softly. "My purse?" Maya stepped forward and handed it to her. "I found it at the restaurant." For a moment, nobody spoke. The mother quickly opened the purse. All her hands trembled slightly as she searched inside. Then she found the flash drive. She looked up at her son. Relief filled her eyes. "It's here." The mafia boss slowly walked toward Maya. He studied her carefully, not with suspicion, but curiosity. "You walked all the way here to return this?" Maya nodded nervously. "I didn't know where else to take it." He glanced at the purse again. "You understand what you returned tonight?" She shook her head. "No, our sir." He leaned slightly closer. "You saved a deal worth billions of dollars." Maya's eyes widened. She hadn't expected that, not even close. Then his mother spoke gently. "Young lady, how can we repay you?" Maya quickly shook her head. "No, it's okay. I just wanted to return it." But the mother noticed something, tears forming in Maya's eyes. "What's wrong?" Maya hesitated, then quietly admitted, "I lost my job tonight." The mother frowned. Why?" "Because I left work to bring this here." For a moment, the room fell silent. Then the mafia boss's mother slowly turned toward her son, and in a calm but firm voice said something that would change Maya's life forever. "Son, this girl deserves better." The mafia boss looked at Maya again. Really looked at her this time. A young woman who had just sacrificed her job to protect someone else's business. He smiled slightly. Then he said 4 simple words. "Yes, welcome to my company." Maya blinked in disbelief. "What? You're hired." His mother smiled warmly. "And not just hired," the mafia boss added calmly. "You're starting tomorrow, in a management position." Maya couldn't speak. Her entire world had just changed in seconds. As she stood there, stunned, the mafia boss quietly watched her. And for the first time that night, he realized something unexpected. Saw this honest waitress who had walked across the city to protect his business was someone he wanted to know better. And although neither of them knew it yet, this moment would be the beginning of something far greater than either of them expected.
If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who believes kindness still exists in this world. This is Midnight Archives, where power meets humanity.